All right. I am experimenting with going live with YouTube. Okay, so if you got this notification that I am live, awesome. You must be one of my subscribers. So I had trouble doing the live session today. There were a lot of issues with sound, so hopefully you can hear me. So I decided I was going to try to re-record it when I got a chance, and I figured why not give live streaming through YouTube a try. So I'm going to basically redo the whole live session, and that way I don't have to re-upload it. It will be live. So hopefully this is working and there's no more issues. So here we go. So it is week 2. Week 2, you are learning about graphing and linear equations. So the sections we're covering this week are kind of a mixed bag. They're kind of, we're pulling from here, we're pulling from there, but they do have a coherent message, so to speak. So we're taking the very last section of Chapter P, which is the prerequisites and review section. We're doing P.6, rectangular coordinate system and graphs. Then we're going to be moving on to Chapter 1, and we're going to do the first 3 sections of Chapter 1. We've got graphs of equations, linear equations of one variable, and modeling with linear equations. So we're doing graphing, then we move into graphing with 1.1, and then from there, we're then moving from 1.1 to solving to linear equations and solving with modeling, basically word problems, or basically solving for x. So I see that I have someone watching. Welcome! I can't figure out YouTube. I don't know how to figure out who's watching me, but thank you for watching this live since I'm trying to figure out how to do this since the live session earlier today was the debacle. So thank you for whoever's here. Welcome! So then we're moving on to Chapter 2 and doing 2.1, which is linear equations in 2 variables, which is basically graphing linear equations in line. So we're taking graphing, then we're going into linear equations, and then we're combining them into graphing linear equations. And so they all do match together into the very end with that last section. And don't worry about all the sections that we're skipping in Chapter 1. You don't need those for 2.1. So you will be fine. So if you took the fundamentals of algebra MA104, then most of these topics you'll have seen before, and so this will be a review for you, which should be great. If not, don't worry. It's completely fine if this is new. I mean, that's why you're taking this class. This will be new things. So what can you use this material for? Why are you learning this in college algebra? What is the purpose of all this? Well, this week is very important for anybody going into business. This is one of the weeks that you're probably going to use the most for, because a lot of things that you do with business involve making equations. A lot of the equations are simple linear equations. And actually, our discussion will be using a linear equation to predict sales, basically. So you will be doing business sort of things with the math that you're doing this week. So business applications are sales, profit, revenue, depreciation, salaries. You can create equations to predict those things or to analyze those things. And so a lot of those are linear equations. Statistics. So a lot of people end up having to take statistics. And if you have to take a statistics class, one of the things that you do is called linear regression. And that is basically you get data and then you're trying to find the best line that fits most of that data that you can use to predict. What our discussion is this week is a very simple version of that, but when you get into statistics, you learn how to find a better version of that line. And all of that is based off of what you learned this week, where you need to solve for x and graph lines. Presenting data on graphs. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff with graphs, and so everybody in their life sees graphs and has to read graphs, and so you're going to learn how to read graphs. If you're in construction, a lot of people in construction say, I don't do math, all I do is multiply or divide. Well, some of the things we're going to talk about this week are like the Pythagorean theorem and finding the distance between 2 points, which you could be using in construction if you're trying to find how long something is distance and time problems, that's something that everybody can use is a linear equation. A lot of this stuff you're just multiplying and dividing, and you don't even realize you're using algebra because you're doing it in your head. So basic arithmetic problems, simple problems where you're just multiplying and dividing, adding, subtracting, you can write an equation for that, even if you do it in your head. Unit conversions. So a lot of unit conversions, some people just multiply and divide with those, but you can also do what's called a proportion to convert units, and that uses those are all linear equations. They're rational because they have fractions, but they turn into linear equations. And so a lot of unit conversions can actually be written as linear equations, which we'll be talking about this week. And anything that has constant change. So anything that has a rate, like miles per hour, dollars per hour, like your salary, or some people are paid per hour. They're hourly workers, but the amount you get paid is the same for each hour, so that's constant. Anything that is a constant change, that can be modeled with a linear equation, and that's something that's called slopes. So a lot of things in real life, your salary can be written as an equation. So this stuff is actually really relevant to everybody, even if you're not sitting there solving equations all day. So this slide is something that I didn't talk about last week. I like to make connections from the previous weeks to this week so that you know and you can see how things connect. So what I do is I go through each section and then I look to see what previous sections does that reply, like, what do you need? Like P.6, you only really need stuff from P.1 and P.2. So you have an idea of which sections that everything relies on. Our book, the most common complaint I hear about our book is that it doesn't show enough steps, because if it has shown you the step in a previous section, it's not going to show you the step again. So it only shows it to you in the section that it first teaches you. And so sometimes people are like, well, I don't understand how it got from here to here. They usually will tell you what they did, like they factored, but they don't show the factoring steps. So if that happens, and you're like, okay, they say they factored, but I don't know what the factoring steps are, you can go to this slide and say, okay, I'm in, say, section 1.2, and I did some factoring. That's section P.4, so let me go back to P.4. So you can have an idea of which sections to look at to find what you're looking for if you need some further examples. The other thing about this slide is you can see which sections are repeatedly used, so you can kind of get an idea of which are the most important sections that you really need to know the material from. I've sort of distilled that into like the big skills. So this week, you're going to be using exponents, understanding how they work. You'll be evaluating expressions. You'll be factoring. Factoring is something you're going to be doing every week. So if you're not so good at factoring, that's okay, because you're going to be practicing factoring every single week. We'll be doing stuff with rational expressions this week. You'll be simplifying, you'll be multiplying and dividing, you'll be adding and subtracting. So you can see that the things that you learned last week are going to be reinforced. You're going to get more practice with them this week. You may have some extra steps added on, but you'll still be doing those basic steps that you learned last week. So we are reinforcing the material each week because it's going to keep coming up over and over and over again. So for this week, you've got your discussion. There's the ungraded practice assignment, the assignment, and then this is the first week that you have a quiz. So we will spend some time talking about the quiz. But I'm going to start with the discussion first. So if you have not taken, like say, MA104, you may not be familiar with math-based discussions. So MA104 has like one discussion that's sort of math-based where you have to work out math. This course, and then if you go on and you take more math classes, you'll see several discussions where you have to actually work out some math in the discussion, but it's real-world situations. This is your first experience at that. And so in order to do these kinds of problems, you need to do some research, you're going to find real data, and then you are going to be doing math and showing that in the discussion. So I said that this week there's a lot of business applications. And so the goal in our discussion this week is to predict the sales of a company. And we're going to do that based off of real data. So this is helpful, say, if you're looking at investing in stocks and you're looking at their trends and you want to say, oh, are they going to continue going up or are they going to go down? Well, this will give you a good idea. So your first part is to research. So you want to choose a public company because that they have their data available that you are interested in. So it could be Apple, Amazon, Walmart. It could be a company you work for if it's public. Some people do that. Find 2 years of data listing the total sales or the total profit. So you need to find real data. So there are 2 websites that I recommend, Statista.com and macrotrends.net. So I am going to just pull up Google right here. Let's see if it's, okay, so yeah, so you're seeing the Google. So let's say I want to look up Fitbit, and I want to use macro trends, because the macro trends website I've had some problems with. So I'm going to just type in macro trends and then Fitbit. And then, okay. So now here's the macro trends link. It's the first one because it says macrotrends.net. So I'm just going to click on that one. Now it's defaulting to this macro cap. That's not what I care about. We're going to be predicting sales, which you can think of like revenue or profit, or you can think of as the financials. So if you click on financials, you can see the revenue, you can see everything. You can see their net income. You can get all of this stuff. This might be hard for you to read, so if you prefer, you can just go to the revenue and profit tab. And so depending on the company, they will have charts here, and then you can highlight to read the chart. You can see the quarterly. There's all this information here. Let's say we want gross profit. Let's see what it says there. Sometimes they actually give us numbers. So Fitbit doesn't have any actual numbers here. We don't want the trailing 12 months because that's not accurate. So it looks like I'm going to have to use the financials, which is fine. Each company is different. So you're going to pick a year. Basically, we're making order pairs. Our year is going to be our input, and then let's say for Fitbit, I'm going to use revenue as the output, and then I'm going to use that for my prediction. So I have my years, so like we've got 2018, 2017, 2016, and then it goes to 2012 here. So I need to pick 2 years of data. So you can pick any 2 years you want. Let's say I want to pick 2018 and 2017. So I'm going to want the revenue here. That's going to be my output numbers. So for 2018, it's going to be, I don't know what the units are here. It says 1,511.0, it's in millions. So that's actually 1.5 billion. So that's $1,511.983 million. So it says the units right here, millions of US. So I can convert that to billions if I want and just work with 1.5 and say 1.6. Or you can work with these numbers. It's up to you. But you need to pick those 2 sets of data, and you're going to work with those 2 data points. Or if you want to pick 2012 and 2018, whatever you want. But that's what you're going to be doing. So you're creating ordered pairs, your year, and then sales, profit, something that you're going to be predicting here. And then you're going to get into the actual math part. So you need to find the slope for those 2 points. So that will give you the slope, which is going to tell you how much it changes per year. So if you get a positive slope, it's increasing per year. If it's a negative slope, then it's actually decreasing per year. And so it's losing money. Point slope form is a specific type of equation of a line, and you're going to use that to get your equation of a line so that you can get an equation that you can use to actually then predict. So example 8 in section 2.1 has a very similar example. They don't show all the steps there in example 8, so just as an FYI, not all the steps are shown, but it is very similar. And then you're going to use your equation to predict the sales for 2021. So you're predicting 2 years out from now and say, okay, using this equation, what do I think they're going to be in 2 years? So, and then there's a lot of stuff for you to consider as when you're replying to classmates. You can take a look at their math. Did they make any mistakes with the math? You could talk about the company. Do you think this is accurate? You know, do you think they picked good pairs, two points, or do you think they chose bad points? Should they look at different values? Are there things in the news that might change the calculation here? You know, this is not a perfect prediction, because we're not doing statistics, which is more accurate. This is just, you know, getting a very basic idea. And there's so many things that can affect this. And so there's a lot of discussion you can get about that. I do have a video for 2.1 where I kind of walk through all the steps you need to do here, which would be very helpful. So in the classroom, you need to click on the additional resources and live sessions link near the bottom of the list. Then once you're there, you click additional content videos, and then click on the week 2 recorded videos. And then you scroll down and you'll see one for 2.1. So before you do your discussion, I strongly recommend that you check out that video, because that will help you out a lot. Okay, so discussion requirements. Because this is a math-based discussion, the 75-word minimum is irrelevant. What's important is that you show all of the math. Now, when you're showing the math, you cannot copy it from Microsoft Word. It doesn't work. Microsoft Word does not copy in the equations, unfortunately. It's really sad. I wish it did, but it doesn't. So your choice is to do the math on paper and then take a picture and include that in your discussion. There is a button that has like a little mountain that you can do to include photos. Your other option is to use the function button in the discussion. In the editor, when you go to type your discussion, there is a button that says FX, and then that will have a pop-up where you can actually enter in equations. So I would do one of those two so that you can show your work, because you do need to show your math so that everyone can learn from each other. When your replies can talk about the math, or they can talk about the company and kind of reflect on whether the math is accurate, analyze the numbers, basically. That's what you do in real life. So that's what you're doing for this discussion. If you have questions, of course, you can always email me. Definitely recommend watching my 2.1 video. There we go. Okay, so on to the assignments. So the ungraded practice assignment is pulling from 3 different pieces, because, you know, there are 3 different parts that we're looking at here, Chapter P, Chapter 1, and Chapter 2. So I definitely recommend checking your answers when you're working through these, watching the videos that help you, looking at the solutions on Help Chat. If time is an issue this week, if you just are running out of time and don't have enough time to do all those problems, at least do the checkpoint exercises that are in the reading. At the bare minimum, doing those, because those answers all have videos on the website, the LarsonPrecalculus.com. The website has solutions to all those checkpoint exercises in video form. So those you can always check your work with. So that's an option as well. Okay, so your graded assignment is just like week 1, where you had 10 problems. You need to show your work. It's graded right or wrong. Now, I did get some more information from the instructors on what their expectations are. So like last week I said you need to ask on late penalties, on all that stuff. So I did find out some more information. So all of the instructors allow you to scan your work. So I recommend Genius Scan as a phone app that you can use, where you can take photos and then it'll turn it into a PDF. And then you can use the Blackboard app to upload that PDF from your phone. So they all allow scanned work. If you're doing it in pencil, you want to make sure it's dark enough that it's readable. Otherwise, do it in pen. If you are hesitant about doing things in pen, you can always go over it in pen later, but make sure it's dark enough that you can read everything. Please submit one file, so if you have multiple photos, because you have multiple pages, combine those into one PDF. Make sure everything's in order, everything's numbered. Make sure your answers are clear. I have found out some more information about the policies on assignments by various instructors. So just as a reminder, I am not the instructors for any of the courses. I am just the coordinator. So I am passing on important information to you guys, but I'm not doing your grading. I am not in your discussions. I do not have access to your grades. I don't have access to any of that. Those are the individual instructors. So there are 3 different instructors, so you need to figure out which one you have. You can do that by clicking on instructor information. So if you have Janet Wyatt, for both late policies and resubmissions, you need to email her to ask see what, for late policies, late work, you need to email her to ask for permission. I don't know what a resubmission policy is, so you'll have to email her to ask. For Linda Kane, she accepts late work with a penalty. But she does accept late work, so that's awesome. And she allows you 3 attempts for resubmissions on the assignments. So you can resubmit up to 2 times, which is great. So if you really bomb it, and because it's only, there's no partial credit, you have the opportunity to resubmit. Philip Rappel, if you're going to have, if you're going to turn in something late, email him for permission. And he will leave you feedback on whether he will want you to resubmit or not. So always check your assignment feedback there. If I get more clarification on these policies from them, then I will let you guys know. But this is what I saw in the classrooms. So quiz. This is the very important thing because this is your first quiz in this class, and so it's good to know how this works. So, this is how all quizzes work for this class. They are 10 multiple choice questions worth 10 points each. And then you have 1 hour to complete all 10 questions. You need to complete this in one sitting. You can't leave it and come back to it later. Once you click to start the quiz, the timer begins. And as soon as the timer runs out, the quiz will submit. So, do not click on the quiz until you are ready to take the quiz. And make sure you're not going to be interrupted because you cannot save it for later. Now, because the quiz is multiple choice, and we all know that math is something where if you make one small error, like you miss a negative sign, your whole answer can be wrong. And so that's hard to figure that out based off of multiple choice questions. And so the way you get partial credit is by submitting the work for your quiz. So when you're taking a quiz, do all of your work on paper. And then when you're done with the quiz, once you've finished, you submitted the quiz, then you can submit that work to a separate Dropbox. So there's going to be the week 2 quiz and then the week 2 quiz Dropbox. And then that's where you can upload photos of your work so that you have something that you can get partial credit off of. So the way that works, the partial credit is generally you earn points. If we see that you made a small mistake, but most of it is right, you'll earn points. You'll get points, and those will be added to your quiz score. If you have one answer on the quiz, but your work shows a different answer, you may lose points because there's a contradiction there. But as long as you write down what you did and then upload it, you should never lose points. If you got to a point where your answer, you worked out the work on paper and then none of the answers matched and you had to guess, at least write a note that said you guessed so that they know why your answers don't match. If you do not submit any work, depending on your instructor, you may get a 0 for the quiz because it is required to submit your work. So make sure you submit that. If you do get a 0 on the quiz, check to see if there's a note that says, well, you didn't submit your work. Any changes to score are done on the actual quiz score, not the Dropbox. So there will be a grade for the Dropbox, but it's just a 0. And it just means that it's been looked at, comments have been left, and your points have been added to your quiz. So if you get a 0 in the Dropbox score, that's okay. That's what's expected. You should get extra points on the quiz itself. Most people will end up getting about 5 to 10 more points on their quiz through their work, which is up to a 10% increase in score. I have seen some students get up to 20 extra points, which is 20% added to your score. So it really is worth your time to submit your work. even if you get a 100%, even if you have all of the questions correct, submit your work, because at least it shows that you didn't cheat. It says, yes, I really did do these problems. If you're worried about the fact that it's timed, I have gotten very few complaints about it being timed. Most people actually do have enough time, and if you don't worry about the time, you usually end up finding yourself having plenty of time. The only people who tend to run out of time are those who didn't quite study enough. So as long as you study, you should be fine. One good piece of advice when you're doing timed things like this is to do the easy questions first. So all of the quiz questions should be displayed all at once. So do all the ones you know how to do first, and then go back and do the harder ones. Another option is to set a timer for yourself for, like, say, 5 minutes. And if that timer goes off and you've spent more than 5 minutes on a question, move on to the next question. And then, if you have time at the end, go back. That way you can keep yourself on track and you don't run out of time. If you do problems out of order, then for your Dropbox, you are welcome to rewrite the work and put it in order before you submit it in the Dropbox. There's no deadline for submitting work to the Dropbox. So while I recommend you do it as soon as you finish the quiz, you do not have to do it during the quiz. The quiz is more important than the Dropbox. But if you do problems out of order, you can rewrite it and then turn it in later for the Dropbox. And you can do that on paper, or you can type it up if you want to take the time. So I think that's everything that you need to know about the quiz. If you have questions, of course, nobody's typing in the chat, but I know there is a chat on this live thing. Otherwise, you can email me. You'll get the hang of it as you go. So the topics covered on the quiz, there are 10 questions, and so there's going to be one question per topic here, basically. So there's one question on order of operations. You've got a question on evaluating expressions, a question on exponential expressions where you're simplifying them. You're simplifying rational expressions, simplifying radicals, multiplying polynomials, factoring, adding and subtracting rational expressions and polynomials, and multiplying and dividing rational expressions. So basically everything that you had to do in the assignment, you're going to have to do on the quiz. The numbers will be different, the problems will be different, but the skills will be the same. So you've already practiced how to do this. And you've had an assignment, and now you've been graded on it. And so you can use that to help study. So what I recommend you do when you study for these quizzes is to review your assignment from the previous week. Make sure you know how to do all the problems. If you got feedback or you got some wrong, figure out how to fix those. Learn how to fix it. Ask questions. If you don't understand the feedback, ask your instructor for more details. Or use tutor.com to figure out what you did wrong. Make sure you know how to correct your mistakes and you know what to do moving forward. Find practice problems out of the textbook that are similar to those. You know which sections they come from because I have that listed in the suggested schedule, so try to find problems from those sections that are similar. So that will help you study, because then if you do odd problems from the textbook, those answers are provided on the textbook's website. You can do pre-test and post-test from Chapter P. Those are on the textbook's website, so that's another way to study for the quiz. And then there's this website called IXL.com that I absolutely love. They're not paying me or anything. I just think they're a wonderful website where you can actually do practice problems, and they're just all randomly generated. So I'm going to just click on one of these and then pull it over to my, I accidentally minimized it instead of maximized it. So I just clicked on simplifying rational expressions. And so you can click in this box, you can build a fraction, and you can simplify, and you can get practice problems. So I know this one's going to be 9j minus 2. So then I hit submit, and then it will tell you if you're right or it will tell you if you're wrong, and you got a new one. So What's nice is that it does have a time elapsed, so you can use that to time yourself. You know, if you're worried about running out of time. For some of them, not this one, but some of them, they have an option to view an example. So I'm going to just type in something that's obviously wrong and see. So if you type in something that's wrong, then you can see how to work it out, and they show you how to work it out. So, and that's like the same with the view of an example. If you don't think you're ready for that, it tells you things that you might want to practice before you get to this. And so you have options here, and you click on these. So this website is great for practice. Our class is a mix of Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. So this is Algebra 1. If I click on Algebra 1 right here, that will get me a list of all of the topics. And then you can pick the ones that match what we're covering. If you scroll down in this A2, that's Algebra 2. We're also covering Algebra 2 stuff. So this is another one that you can go through. You can click on, like evaluating expressions. Here, that's under variable expressions. So then you can get some practice problems here for various different types. Simplifying expressions. Factoring and figuring out factors. There's an example here. So there's lots of practice here, and you can use that to help you study for the quiz. But I've got 3 linked here specifically on rational expressions because that is the hardest for people. So I've got that linked right there. So here's how I suggest your schedule goes. I try to say people only should do a section a day so you're not overwhelmed. Notice that I did put 2.1 before 1.3, and I did that so that you can get to it as soon as you can, so that you can do the discussion, since the discussion is based off of 2.1. 1.3 is just word problems, so you don't really need that section to do 2.1. So I did flip-flop those. Note which questions on the assignment go with each reading, each section, so that when you're done with 1.1, you can work on these assignment questions before you move on to the next section. So check those out, make sure you're doing those in order. I don't recommend you do the quiz until the very end of the week because you'll get practice on some of the material as you go through the material for this week, as I showed on that slide with the prerequisites, what each section relies on. So you'll get practice on the material as you go. So I don't recommend you do the quiz until the very end of the week. And so you can kind of spread out your studying. So of course you can modify the schedule as much as you need, but this is sort of how I suggest it, so you can spread it out. But of course, you can cut things out if you need to, whatever you need to do to make it work for you. So that is it. That is the live session that I did at 6 p.m. that had sound issues. So here it is again, live. I thank you, 2 people, whoever you are, for watching me live while I do this again. This is my first time doing a live video. I have never done this before. I don't know how all this works. If this actually works and like the chat stuff works, maybe I'll do this instead of the Blackboard thing because YouTube's a lot easier. But we'll see. I still have to figure out how to maybe switch between like my screen and my webcam. I'm still learning YouTube. But thank you so much for joining me. Now I have to figure out how to close this. But if you guys have questions, you've got my email address, you've got my phone number here. Of course, tomorrow morning I'll make sure this is in your classroom and with the PowerPoint all attached and all that kind of stuff. So thank you very much. I hope you guys have a great evening, and hopefully I will see you guys next week. And now to figure out how to close this, how to stop this.